In 2005, Ishiguro published a novel that seemed to be quite unlike anything he'd written before. The first page of Never Let Me Go describes its setting as England, late 1990s. But this is an altered world, where medical advances have led society down a different path.
One of the most, I suppose, provocative and surprising things about Never Let Me Go was that if you were lazy or reductive, you would call it a science fiction book. And yet, it's actually not different from all the other books in the end. It's different because the setting is different. It's an imagined world. It's a world that's contemporary England, but slightly off of its axis. And so the reader is automatically disarmed. But the way it opens is very familiar. It's again that plain-spoken, confiding, but not warm voice that you find in so many of his books.
My name is Kathy H. I'm 28 years old. I've been a carer for 9 years. And I'm good at my job. My patients always do better than expected, and are hardly ever classified as agitated, even if they're about to make a donation.
We're hearing words like donation and completion. And as that meaning becomes slowly clearer, you realise, of course, that those words, with their clinical feel, with their detachment, are actually describing something horrifying, horrifyingly intimate and traumatic. And the gap between what you're feeling and how those words appear on the page is suddenly a chasm.
I wanted to write about the kind of the human lifespan. The fact that we all of us are kind of locked into our fates, in the sense that we're all mortal, and that we all have a ticking clock, knowing that we're getting closer and closer to the end of our journeys. But as I was building this up, I could see that there were these ideas about how you create like a underclass, or a caste that is there primarily for exploitation.
What appeared at first to be a sort of boarding school setting turns out to be a home for human clones, raised to be organ donors for mainstream society.
None of you will go to America. None of you will be film stars. And none of you will be working in supermarkets, as I heard some of you planning the other day. Your lives are set out for you. You'll become adults. Then, before you're old, before you're even middle-aged, you'll start to donate your vital organs. That's what each of you was created to do. You're not like the actors you watch on your videos. You're not even like me. You were brought into this world for a purpose, and your futures, all of them, have been decided. One of the most heartbreaking parts of that book is the resignation among these young people, that their lives are mapped out before them, and that they are going to live them, and that there is very little possibility of change. And what happens, of course, when Tommy and Kathy try to change that fate is that they're told that it's impossible. And after a brief moment of rage, they go back to accepting it. And the question, of course, one thinks about as a reader is, isn't that what happens to all of us? Those of us who are privileged to have choices perhaps think about it less. But for the majority of the world, and for many people in the world, they are told what they are going to be and what their hopes are and what their lives are going to be from the moment they're born. And it would never occur to them to try to change it because it's dangerous to have those thoughts. The idea of free will, the idea that we can create our lives, the idea that we can hope for better is something afforded to only a very few of us. And that is the true horror of that book.